This video contains my notes on the break-even point. Now, as I mentioned in the last set of notes, the authors of the textbook introduced the break-even point at that time. By definition, break-even is the volume of sales. In other words, how many pizzas do I have to sell? How many lawns do I have to mow? Whatever the business model is, right? How many customers do I have to sell products and services to, so forth, in order to have the net income equals zero. In other words, when I'm running a business, I'm going to have some costs no matter what. Like might have to pay rent, might have to pay utility bills, might have to pay insurance, might have to pay property taxes, whatever the case is. I'm going to have some bills that I got to pay even if I don't sell anything. So obviously, if I don't sell anything, I'm going to lose money. So the question is, how much stuff do I have to sell? What's that volume? How much stuff do I have to sell in order to not lose money? In other words, the first hurdle is, let's just not lose money. I know the ultimate goal is I want to make lots of money. I understand that part. But the first step, before you can make lots of money, the first step is just don't lose any. Right? That's the first step. Just don't go in the hole. So when net income equals zero, you're not making any money, but you're not losing any money either. And so that's a critical line in terms of volume. I've got to sell this many pizzas. I got to mow this many lawns in order to just pay the bills. Then after that, I can start worrying about making money. Now, from a mathematical standpoint, the break-even point is also where contribution margin equals fixed cost, because in the contribution margin income statement, we have sales minus variable cost as contribution margin, and contribution margin minus fixed cost is net income. So since we're taking contribution margin minus fixed cost in order to get to net income, it follows mathematically that if contribution margin and fixed cost are equal, net income will be zero. We're doing break-even analysis today in this concept in this part of the textbook. And break-even analysis is the process of finding where that break-even point is. And it can be found in two ways. I can talk about the number of units I need to sell, whether those are products or services, right? How many pizzas do I need to sell? How many lawns do I need to mow, right? Whatever my business model is, right? How much do I need to sell? How many of these do I need to sell to break even? I want to know that number. Or I could think about it in terms of the dollars of sales. So if I'm running a Starbucks and we're selling all kinds of drinks and food items, we're selling coffees and different kinds of coffees and different sizes at different price points, and tea, and then other food items, pastries and sandwiches and stuff. We're selling all this stuff in the store. How much in terms of total sales dollars and total revenue do I need to generate in order to pay the bills? So I can think of it either way. Now, if I'm thinking about it in terms of the number of units I need to sell, which is like the number of pizzas I would need to sell to break even, the mathematical formula is to take the fixed cost of the business and divide by the unit contribution margin. In other words, what's my contribution margin for a single pizza, right? What do I sell it for? What are my variable costs? Sales minus variable cost is contribution margin for a single pizza. So I take the fixed cost divided by the unit contribution margin. And if I need to, I'll round up. So I don't round off. So like rounding off mathematically, if you had 13.8, you'd round it to 14. But if you had 13.2, you would round it to 13. With break even, you always round up. So 13.8 rounds to 14, and 13.2 also rounds to 14. So you always round up, not off, whenever you're doing break even. Now, in the second case, if I want to think about not how many pizzas I need to sell, but how many sales dollars, how much revenue I need to generate as a business in order to break even, The answer to that is to take the fixed cost and divide by the CM ratio. Remember, the CM ratio is the contribution margin divided by sales. So these formulas are pretty similar, and therefore they're easy to get confused. Both formulas have fixed cost in the numerator of the fraction. So that's easy to remember, but it doesn't really help us to tell the difference between the two. And both formulas have contribution margin in the denominator, which again is easy to remember, but it doesn't help us distinguish between the two. So the way that I remember this is, if I'm trying to find the units needed to break even, it's got to be the unit contribution margin in the denominator. So when I'm looking for units, I use the unit CM. In my brain, units go with units. So just match them up. If I'm looking for sales dollars needed, that's not a unit. So I don't put the unit CM in the denominator. In other words, no units also match. So sales dollars is not a unit number. So I don't use unit CM. I use the CM ratio instead. So units with units, no units with no units. That's how my brain works on that.